Dad gave me some words of wisdom when I started dating. He said, son, high-valued men don't tolerate any kind of disrespect, manipulation, or lies from girls or women. Be true to yourself and always be a high-valued man. Well, this is when my turmoil started. Bad news, sweetheart. The merger meeting has just been moved up, and I need to leave tomorrow morning and won't be back until late Sunday. I know how important this wedding is to you, especially because you're the maid of honor. You need to understand that I just got this promotion to CFO, and I can't miss the meeting because there's too much riding on it for the company and our future. You'll have to go without me. I'm sorry. Are you serious? You know how long we've planned this. And now at the last minute, you're going to cancel and I'll be there alone. You have any idea how embarrassing that will be for me? Isn't there anything you can do? Can't someone else go in your place? Vera, this deal is valued at over $2 billion and I lead this project. You know how hard we've worked on it over the last year and no, there is nobody else that can take my place. Too many people's jobs depend on our success. I'm sorry. I know this is difficult and I'll make it up to you with the bonus money. We'll see from this deal. I know you're angry, but there's nothing I can do. I'll be back on Sunday. To say she was pissed was an understatement. She stopped talking to me and told me to sleep in the guest room. No intimacy or sex before my trip. That wasn't normal. Her coldness and anger were also a lot of character. I tried to understand, but was unable to alleviate her anger. So I packed for my trip and slept in the guest room that night. I knew the wedding was important to her because of all the struggles her lifelong friend, Carol, had gone through. Her ex-husband cheated on her during her life-threatening illness and abandoned her because he couldn't watch her slow death. He took the coward's way out. It devastated Carol and didn't help her situation. But after a miraculous recovery, Carol filed for divorce due to abandonment and lived with depression for the next 5 years. All her friends and family were there for her and tried to cheer her up to no avail. Then one day she met a guy at the grocery store and her world flourished and she became her old self. Once again, her friends and family's prayers were answered and everyone wanted to celebrate the joyous occasion. Brandon, her fiancé, loved her deeply and planned this fantastic wedding. Vera was her best friend and the maid of honor. She was there for her friend the entire time. I knew this was important to Vera and I hated having to cancel, but there was nothing I could do. I knew that I would have to make it up to her and somehow deal with her anger. Before leaving on my trip the next morning, I tried to give Vera a kiss goodbye, but the door to our bedroom was locked and she wasn't about to open it for me. I told her I loved her and would call her when I landed in Germany. Without any reply, I sadly walked to the waiting limo that drove me to the airport. I felt terrible and unhappy about her actions and not understanding my situation. After 19 years of marriage, I would have expected more tolerance and caring. I called her before the flight, but her cell phone went right to voicemail. I left her a message apologizing once again, hoping for a reply. I sent another text before takeoff and another when I landed 10 hours later. Still no reply, no voicemails, no texts. I knew she was pissed and that I would have a great deal of apologizing to get back in her good graces. With no other choice, I called our twin girls at college and told them about my trip and how my work plans had changed, that their mom was angry with me and not returning my calls. I asked them not to say anything and just to check in on her to make sure she was okay, that I was worried about her and that I would feel much better if they could let me know she was okay. They understood and told me they loved me. They've always been daddy's girls and I loved them dearly. Germany. When I got to the hotel, I called my CEO to get an update. Into my horror, the meeting had just been canceled because the CEO of the other company had a death in his family and would have to reschedule. I immediately called the airlines and got a direct flight into Chicago O'Hare, which was only 30 minutes from the reception. Since the wedding reception started at 7 p.m., I figured I could get there by 9 p.m. and be a good husband. I was sure that would make her happy. After getting the rental car, the GPS gave me directions to the reception hall. It was a little after 9 when I entered the reception and the celebration was in full swing. The music was loud. Everyone was dancing and the liquor was freely flowing. There were lots of drunk people partying and enjoying the celebration. It was indeed a happy occasion and I was happy. I could attend and anxious to be with my wife. There were over 200 people at the reception and I couldn't see Vera. When I came in, I walked over to the open bar and ordered a double bourbon, stepped to the side and scanned the crowd for my wife. I reflected on our past and how we got here. Vera was 5 years older than me and recently divorced. When we met her ex-husband, Dr. Daryl Darlington was a medical resident at Mercy Hospital. When they were divorced, Dr. Darlington, as he liked to be called, was caught cheating with one of the nurses at the hospital. When Vera found out, she kicked him out, devastated by his betrayal. She wanted children and a happy life, but the asshole destroyed her dreams. She divorced him and was depressed and penniless after the divorce because residents don't earn much money, and the divorce simply split their holdings. She turned to waitressing and was barely making ends meet. Because of this episode in her life, she knew firsthand how Carol felt. When I met Vera, it was love at first sight. I fell head over heels for this lady. She may have been broken and depressed, but I knew she was a diamond in the rough. I saw her obvious beauty, but fell in love with her heart and her caring personality. I saved her from herself, turned her life around and gave her 19 beautiful years filled with the love of our twin girls. Vera loved my no-nonsense attitude when it came to relationships. We constantly discussed loyalty and commitment, and this made her feel safe and secure. I made it clear that I was a loyal partner and would never put up with cheating in any way, and praised her for dumping her cheating husband, no matter how difficult it was. I explained that many people would put up with it to save a marriage or to remain secure financially, and was proud of her strength to move on. That was the foundation of our marriage: trust, loyalty, and commitment. Until this damn wedding, I was living a wonderful life, completely fulfilled and in love. Vera looked great for 44, but I was 5 years younger and in great shape. In fact, at 39, I was in the prime of my life due to my constant gym workouts and 5K runs. I was at peak performance. She had a fantastic body and we were excellent in the SEC. There was no issue with our age difference, and we had rarely discussed it over the years. We had raised two incredible twin girls, Katie and Carrie, who were now in college 4 hours from home. They were happy and experiencing college life while getting ready for their future. We had a great family and a stable marriage. At least, that was my belief until I saw my wife sitting alone with Dr. Darlington, her ex-husband. I knew Daryl was a friend of Carol, the bride, but I didn't expect him to be at the wedding, let alone being here single without his wife. Tired from the travel and curious at what I was seeing, I stood there and watched them sitting alone. I was shocked at how very friendly they were considering their history. I decided to watch for a few minutes to see exactly what they were doing. It didn't take long for my world to deteriorate. I was about to approach them and break up their love fest, but before I could make my move, she stood up, took his hand and led him onto the dance floor. She looked terrific in that tight-fitting ivory gown and my heart went out to her, praying for this to be nothing more than a dance. Her forwardness shocked me as they danced to several slow songs. I nursed my drink and waited to see what happened next. I could tell that Vera had been drinking from the way she was flirting, which wasn't uncommon after several drinks. She always got horny and flirty with me, which was normal. What was not expected was her kissing another man who wasn't me and doing it openly in front of her friends. Everyone knew she was married to me, and that pissed me off even more. I felt humiliated and angry as I watched my wife give her love away, still frozen in shock. My blood was now boiling as I watched him openly grabbing her ass and kissing her as she responded in kind. My anger grew, and as I was about to approach them and break it up, when they walked back to the table and sat off to the side, they started making out like a honeymoon couple, and I could clearly see his hands on her breasts and her hand under the table. Just before I was about to confront him, I realized that my marriage was over. I remembered my father's words: high-value men don't tolerate disrespect. And I decided to act, but not in a violent way. I could have made a scene, disrupted the perfect wedding ceremony, stopped them and prevented it from going further. But why? I thought if she wants him, she can have him. She is no longer mine. With a strange calm, I took out my phone, zoomed in and took several close-up photos, a short video, and then sent her a text message. Well, I text, "Great news, honey, the meeting was postponed and I'm back. But it looks like you're in good hands tonight. I'll be heading back home and I assume you'll be spending the night with Dr. Darlington. Now I understand why you haven't answered my calls or returned my text messages. Well, have fun and enjoy the death of our marriage. I'll be going by the time you get home tomorrow." I hit send and watched calmly, wondering if she would pick up her phone and read the text. As I watched, I could see her phone light up with the notification of an incoming message. She saw it light up on the table and picked up the phone. She then started hitting some buttons, obviously looking for the message. Vera seemed to have sobered up quickly, as I saw the expression on her face become serious. As soon as I saw her reaction, I headed out of the reception to my car. Vera must have panicked and saw me leaving, but I made it outside before she could reach me. As I opened my car door, I heard her scream, "Sweetheart, please wait." With a cold stare, I just shook my head, got in my car and left the parking lot before she could reach me. My phone immediately started to ring, but I was in no condition to answer it, much less speak to her. She wanted to be with her ex, then we were through. Hell, after what I just saw, we were done anyway. 22 years after divorcing that cheating asshole, she jumps back into his arms. The first chance she gets, well, she'll have to explain things to the family and kids because this is all on her. Dozens of frantic text messages started arriving on my phone. "Please come back. Let me explain. I love you. Please come back." Damn it. It wasn't what it looked like. "I love you." But after 2 days of 10-hour flights, 2 days of no return calls or texts, the cold shoulder and watching her with Dr. Darlington, I was in no mood to listen to her apologies. In fact, I was as angry as I had ever been and wanted nothing to do with her or her bullshit. After 20 phone calls and texts, I pulled over and sent one text message back to her. The text I sent reads, "Screw you. My work was going great. My kids were off to college, which was already funded, and I had nothing tying me down. I was still young enough to make a new start." After 4 hours into my 7-hour drive back to Nashville, I pulled into a diner to get a bite to eat and take a short nap in the car before I continued my drive back home. While eating my eggs and bacon, I decided to let the world know exactly how I felt. At the time, Facebook was the most popular social media site where everyone visited and exchanged updates on their life. Between bites, I changed my Facebook status from happily married to single and available. Then I posted 2 photos. I took a Vera and Daryl and a deep kiss at the wedding. In the second photo, you could see his hand on her breast. Under the photo, I explained that Vera was trading up and getting back with her ex-husband and that I was now back on the market. Yes, it was immature, but in my mind it was the truth. I was moving on without her. The funny thing is that Daryl, her ex, was almost 50 years old, balding, overweight, and without trying to sound conceited, not an upgrade by any sense of the word. What the hell was she thinking? Throwing us away for some old worn-out dude who had already cheated on her. Maybe she wanted to be with a doctor instead of an accountant. To be honest, it hurt. In fact, it hurt a lot. I felt more pain at that moment than I could ever remember. I felt sad and angry, but it made me laugh at the ridiculous situation. She was throwing her marriage of 19 years away for an old guy who cheated on her over 20 years ago. The hell with her and fuck him. He can have her. They deserve each other. I wasn't the kind of guy that put up with that type of disrespect. I'm sure there are lots of guys that would say it was only a kiss and some touching and that there is no reason to leave her. Sorry, but in my world, either my woman is committed to me or she is free to be with someone else. We all have to live with our choices. After the late breakfast and a 2-hour nap in the car, I got back on the road, pulling into my driveway at 7 a.m. When I turned on my phone, it started dinging with dozens of notifications. So many came in that I didn't think they were ever going to stop. There had to be over 100 messages from her parents, sister, and friends. Within 5 minutes of turning on the phone, it started ringing and I noticed it was Vera. I wondered if she got any sleep last night or if she spent it with the doctor. No matter, I ignored her calls because I was past all that now, and only focused on getting what I needed out of the house and moving on. I got along well with her family, and when they called me that morning, I took their call and explained what had happened to her dad. James, I had no idea that she was unhappy with our marriage, but cheating was the death blow to our happy life. I couldn't put up with the disrespect she displayed in front of the people we know. No, it was obvious that she still has feelings for the asshole. And now she can be with him. I intend to find a woman who will appreciate what I offer and stay faithful. James, I have no other choice. I'll be moving out today and putting the house up for sale immediately. I'll be contacting an attorney tomorrow morning to file for divorce. She can live here until the house sells and I will treat her fairly in the divorce. Call me old-fashioned, but I will not live with a woman who wants to be with someone else. She's made her choice, but I don't believe she chose wisely this time. James drove over an hour later and begged me to wait and talk to her before going nuclear. After asking me to give her a chance to explain, I told him to look at that photo again and see how they were fondling each other openly at the wedding. There was no way I would put up with that. Doing it with her ex was just another slap in my face. Her dad was disappointed in her actions and my decision to act swiftly and decisively. When I entered our home, I felt myself tear up, realizing that our happy home was no longer a home, but the shell of our marriage. We spent the last 5 years turning our home into our perfect abode. At that time, the mortgage rates were under 2.99% and our home had doubled in value. Being the accountant, I decided to refinance the home at total value and pulled almost $500,000 of equity out of the house. I immediately set up a $200,000 trust fund for each girl's college and a little extra to give them a good start in life. We took the other $100,000 and upgraded the house, making it a showcase we immensely enjoyed and were proud of. The lower interest rate made the monthly payment only $1,700 per month higher than before we took out the equity. It was a no-brainer and Vera returned to work as a receptionist to make up the extra monthly payment. I had a good salary, nothing crazy, but as the newly promoted CFO, I would get stock options the following year, which would become our retirement fund. Vera was never involved or interested in our finances as long as she got what she wanted, trusted my financial knowledge and lived a comfortable life. I tried to explain the stock options several times, but I could see her eyes glaze over and never fully understood. Since it didn't matter, I just chucked to myself at her lack of interest. No big deal. I was happy for our future. This merger, which coincided with the end of my marriage, would give me a bonus in stock options in the 40,000 share range, if successful. Of course, I would have to wait some years to execute the options, but the expectation that the stock would reach $100 per share made me confident about the future. Since the merger was on hold, the options would not become part of the divorce settlements. I was going to file for irreconcilable differences and just split our assets that equated to about $50,000 in our savings account. We would split the sale of the house, but being fully leveraged meant that there would be little to split. At 44, Vera would walk away with her car and $25,000. She would have lived a loving life with a secure future. If she remained faithful, her world was about to be rocked because my anger and humiliation overrode any loving feelings and memories that were buried deep in my soul. All I wanted now was revenge and for her to realize what she threw away. After packing up my truck, I sat at the kitchen table and enjoyed my last cup of coffee in the home we had made together. I was sad and angry as I placed the empty cup into the sink. I left a short note on the table, telling her not to call me and we would talk once the divorce papers were ready. I didn't bother signing the note and just placed my wedding ring on the papers. Before I left for the last time, I opened my laptop and split our funds and canceled our joint credit card. After paying off the balance starting today, she was on her own. If she fought the divorce, she could pay all the bills herself. There was no way she could afford the mortgage and utilities. The house would be in demand and sell quickly at the right price. If she didn't fight the divorce, we could quickly end the sham of a marriage and she could go back to her beloved Daryl. I drove away from my former sanctuary into a dark, unknown new world. I heard later from my friends at the wedding that after I left, Vera was a wreck. They couldn't get her to stop crying until she finally passed out from all the drinks and exhaustion from the uncontrollable sobbing. Her girlfriends felt horrible and were concerned for Vera. They called me several times, leaving voicemails and text messages for me to return. To prevent her from ruining the wedding reception, the girls brought her back to her hotel room, put her to bed and checked up on her several times that night. When she woke up early and remembered what had happened, she tried calling me repeatedly, begging me to forgive her and to please call. After witnessing, I wanted nothing to do with her and never answered any of her calls or messages. In the meantime, I moved into the company's condo, which is used for out-of-town clients with nobody scheduled to use the condo. I called my CEO and he was okay with me staying there. After I told him the story, my CEO, Carl, is a good friend and had been through something similar many years ago. He suggested that I defer this year's options to accumulate them at a later date. The next day, I went into my office on the 16th floor. There was no way Vera would make it through security. If she showed up to see me at work, and I gave strict instructions to security to escort her out of the building. If she showed up, they were good at their job. And when she did show up on Monday, she got the message that there would not be any interaction at work. She tried desperately to talk to me, but I wanted nothing to do with her. She didn't know where I was staying and I wasn't taking her calls. She was completely isolated, angry at herself, alone and scared for her future. Concerned for their mom, I received several frantic calls from my girls. They were begging me to talk to their mom. I explained that their mom made her decision to be with another man, and everyone knew how I felt about cheating. Before they started to protest, I explained that what she did was cheating in my book. My girls knew better than to argue with me and respected my decision. I calmly tried to explain that their mom chose another man over me, and I no longer had any obligation to her and our divorce was imminent. But I would always be there for them and wanted to keep them in my life. I told them to remember this when they're married and never to disrespect or cheat on their husband, because most men would not stand for that level of disrespect. Funny things happened after my Facebook post. Besides taking calls from all my friends and family asking me to explain, I became a hot commodity with the ladies. Suddenly, I was on the market and started dating much younger women with more energy and enthusiasm than I had enjoyed over the last few years. Gone was the bitching and complaining from Vera, replaced with heightened sex, loving text messages, and constantly being chased by fun-loving girls. I met my future wife, Cheryl, a month later, and we quickly became an item a few months after the divorce was finalized. Vera was upset when she learned of my new lifestyle, mostly angry at herself, but jealous and upset with me for not giving her another chance before the divorce. I turned down all of her requests for a meeting and only communicated with her through the attorneys. In the end, the house sold quickly after real estate fees and closing costs. There was less than $1,000 in equity, which I instructed to be given to Vera. The attorneys fought hard for my options, but the court ruled that they could not attach possible future earnings and use my average income to come up with the settlement. Since Vera was working, the alimony wouldn't be difficult, and I finally agreed to support her for 2 years at $2,000 per month, not a windfall, but enough for Vera to survive on until she got back on her feet or found another sucker to marry her, which wasn't going to be me. For the following years, I never did speak to Vera and only communicated through our attorneys. She moved to Chicago where she had friends and a support group without any other prospects. She moved in with the aging Dr. Darlington. She would never be the same happy woman she was with me and realized what she had given away because of her anger and selfishness. It wasn't like she didn't know how I would react, but she made a bad decision. She never had sex with him that night, but she knew me and still made the wrong decision and acted like a single woman on the prowl. We did meet up at our girls' graduation 3 years later. Vera had tears when she met my 28-year-old pregnant wife, Cheryl, and our 1-year-old little girl, Jolene. Vera was now pushing 47 and the years had not been kind to her. She was accompanied by Dr. Darlington, who wisely kept his distance. Later that afternoon, Vera finally got me alone. "Hey, you never gave me the chance to apologize. I should have known better. A day hasn't gone by when I think back to my stupid actions that weekend. We had it all and I gave it all up for nothing. You were the perfect husband and I missed a wonderful life. We shared Vera, that's in the past and I forgive you. Yes, I never thought you would be in his arms while I was away working for our future, but I need to thank you. You gave me 19 beautiful years and 2 great girls, and I'll always love you for that. Vera, the truth is because of your betrayal. I found Cheryl and